Hello and welcome. My name is Jerry Bonavia, and I am here with my co-workers, John McCrae-Jones and Deja Garner. And we are here to talk about the NRA and their recent entanglement in a number of court cases. It seems that over the last few years, they have been spending more time in court than they have on their typical mission of passing life-endangering policies all across the country and protecting the profits of the gun industry. But last week, a court decision came down, and we had some questions about that. And so we found the perfect person to help us answer those questions. So I want to introduce Jim Santel. Jim is the former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Wisconsin. He is currently a civil litigator, legal instructor, and community speaker on various issues, including civil and human rights and law enforcement reform initiatives. And very selfishly, his most important role is as the Vice President of Wave Educational Fund's Board of Directors. So welcome, Jim. And if you don't mind, we're going to jump into a couple of questions right away.
Let's do it.
The NRA appears to be involved in a lot of court cases right now. There was major news last week in one of those cases. Can you give us some background information?
Absolutely, John. Good to see you. Good to see Jerry, Deja, and all of the folks who are participating with us today. So back in August of last year, about 9 months ago, Letitia James, who is the Attorney General for the state of New York, filed a civil lawsuit, not criminal, civil lawsuit, seeking to dissolve the NRA. And in the course of that lawsuit, a long complaint filed in the New York court, she alleged all sorts of things related to mismanagement, self-dealing, improper use of funds, diverting monies to inappropriate directions, hiring people who are incompetent and inexperienced. And in the end, she's maintaining that the IRA should no longer exist because of all of these failures to properly administer and manage its own matters. And so as a result of her jurisdiction that she has in New York, she is seeking to bring the NRA to a conclusion. Now you might ask, well, gee, how does she have that authority? And the answer is it's by virtue of the fact that the NRA is chartered for about 150 years in the state of New York. Way back in 1847, the legislature did that, and they've got their vitality, their legal being comes out of the state of New York. They benefit from some of the rules and regulations that come from that, but also have to abide by other rules and regulations of the state of New York. And that leads us to what the NRA did next in connection with that lawsuit that was filed in New York by the Attorney General last August.
That brings us to what happened last week. Could you tell us more about the ruling, what it means?
Absolutely. And so the NRA, through Wayne LaPierre and others, left New York, if you will, and went to Texas, went to Dallas, and they went to the bankruptcy court there. Now, bankruptcy court, as you well know, is one of those situations where if you've got a company, you've got a person who's got too much debt, you can reorganize, you can restructure, you can bring your company to a conclusion if you want by passing out monies that are limited to those debtors you have. It's all about finance. It's about resolving your outstanding debts. So the NRA filed a bankruptcy action in the Northern District of Texas and sought arguably some reorganization or some protection of the bankruptcy court. And they were in front of a judge who looked at this, conducted a 12-day trial. And at the end of that, he decided that this is not a proper case for bankruptcy. You shouldn't be in the bankruptcy court because instead of seeking reorganization, what the NRA was trying to do was to avoid that civil lawsuit brought by Letitia James, the Attorney General in New York, against the NRA. And so he said, you know what, I'm dismissing this. Basically, get out of my court, not properly here, no jurisdiction for those of you who are interested in the lawyer part of this, and said, we're done with this. He's dismissing the case, bringing that bankruptcy action to a conclusion.
So, Jim, it sure seems like the NRA's attempt at evading accountability may have backfired completely. Is that right?
It certainly seems that way because, again, in addition to the allegations and Letitia James' allegations in the civil lawsuit in New York, during the course of this 12-day trial, lots and lots of testimony about the status of the NRA. And one of the things interesting that the judge found was that they're not necessarily in financial trouble, which is the reason why I dismissed the bankruptcy case, but an awful lot of things that were described in Letitia James's complaint in New York came out in the trial. So, for example, first of all, that Mr. LaPierre didn't even advise his board of directors, his chief leadership, that he was filing bankruptcy. Some of the bankruptcy judge said it was shocking to him. Went on to describe how a former financial officer, for example, received about $360,000 a year in consulting contracts. There was a 10% booking fee. One time, about $26,000 paid to a personal travel agent booking trips to the Bahama Islands and Lake Como in Italy. And there was about $40,000 was diverted in organizational funds for Mr. LaPierre's assistant. Her son was getting married and used those monies for that purpose. About $275,000 in suits, high-end suits purchased by Mr. LaPierre through the agencies or association's monies. Also, all of that came out during the course of the trial, in addition to many other, frankly, outrageous expenditures of monies from the NRA coffers.
So it sure seems like this is hurting them legally, the fact that they disclosed all of this information. So it was the NRA actually disclosing it. And I can't imagine that's going to help them in their future cases. But it also seems like this won't, that their own members won't look kindly upon the information that was brought out. I know my dad had been a lifetime NRA member. I know he wouldn't approve of all of the expenses that were made to support a lavish lifestyle. So do you agree with that? And what else did you learn?
Absolutely, Jerry. I think you've got it right on both counts. Number one, this is, if you regard it as a legal matter, this is a failure by the litigation, the lawyers, if you will, who are also being paid huge amounts of money. This is a disaster legally to have filed this bankruptcy. Now that's done. And now, of course, the NRA is back in New York, if you will, facing the civil complaint that is there alleging these same kinds of things. That is disastrous for any party, including the NRA. Beyond that, as we just indicated, as your question indicates, a huge amount of information that now is in the public domain, not only about those things that I just described, but also more. For example, there was a 108-foot yacht called Grand Illusion, maybe inappropriately called that was owned by an NRA contractor that included an onboard chef and many, many staterooms. That was used by Mr. LaPierre, his spouse, and a niece. There were purchases of gifts for corporate officials from Neiman Marcus, Bergdorf Goodman, other high-end stores. The NRA apparently paid about $12,000 for Mr. LaPierre's niece to stay in a Four Seasons hotel for a little over a week. And arguably just as important, all sorts of mismanagement when it comes to filing things. When you're a part of an incorporated agency or entity in New York, or frankly any state, you're required obviously to file documents, tax documents. Also revealed during the course of the trial and part of the complaint by the Attorney General in New York is this notion that they made false annual tax filings, federal and state, that included improper expense documentation, improper wage reporting, improper tax withholdings. All of that now, Jerry, as your question indicated, in the public domain for consumption. And certainly you would think that if there are donors out there wondering where their money is going and they see this, you would certainly think that they would think twice about making further donations, and in fact, maybe even try to recoup some of the monies they have in fact given to what was supposed to be a charitable organization, admittedly with an advocacy purpose, but not to aggrandize and to enrich the individuals who are part of this scheme that's not only revealed in the bankruptcy court now, but also in the Letitia James lawsuit in New York.
Thank you, Jim, for bringing clarity to this issue. One final question. So what happens next?
What happens next is that now Letitia James can in fact pursue the lawsuit that she has pending, that she brought. Again, all the things we saw in the bankruptcy court are part of that and more. It's a well over 100-page document. She is going to be pursuing that. It's filed in the New York court. There is discovery, there exchange of documents, all those kinds of things. That too will at some point go to trial, probably no time soon because of the magnitude and the breadth of the allegations there. But she is seeking to dissolve the NRA, to bring it to an end in much the same way. Again, recall this is the same office that brought the Trump organization to a conclusion a couple of years ago. So that same process is underway here. There are other lawsuits out there plainly involving the NRA that are also part of the public domain. Some of the vendors involved that were part of the bankruptcy case are suing, and they're involved with that. And the NRA has also sued Letitia James. This very lawsuit that she has brought is a violation of their First Amendment rights. So lots of litigation, lots of lawyers being paid to do all of this, but that will continue. And it further underscores this notion of the requirement that any organization, whether you're in New York, in Wisconsin, other places around the country, if you're going to be an advocacy entity, you need to abide by the law. Letitia James, the Attorney General, and implicitly the bankruptcy judge in Dallas, has said, you know what, NRA, you have not been doing that. Not only get out of my bankruptcy court, because this is not a proper forum, but get back into the New York State Court, where all these allegations of misrepresentation, self-dealing, divesting monies, sending funds in different areas that they should not be going to, and basically mismanaging the monies given by donors, all of that needs to be reconciled. There should be a public showing of that, even beyond what's been done. And perhaps, although it's a big lift, not a small thing to undertake, perhaps this is the start of the dissolution of the NRA.
Tim, thank you so much. It sounds like there are going to be a lot of court cases coming up in the future. So I hope you'll come back, in the months and years to come, to keep us really up to date and informed about all of the action that's happening with the National Rifle Association. And thank you so much for your time.
It's been my joy, my delight to be with you today, and we'll look forward to more of that, as will America. This is an important matter for our life in this United States, our livelihood, and for the integrity of all that we do. So thank you once again for inviting me to be with you today.
Thank you.